My name is Shauna J. Garul, and I'm 27. My boyfriend, Caleb Mercer, is 26. We had been together just over 2 years. Long enough to share furniture. Long enough to build routines. Long enough for him to know exactly where to aim if he wanted to hurt me in a way that would last. He looked at me almost gently when he said it, which somehow made it worse. You're sweet, he added, but I need more. I can't keep waiting around for potential. Potential. That word hit almost harder than the breakup. It made me sound unfinished, temporary, like I was some half-built version of a woman he had outgrown. That was when I noticed her. A woman standing a little too close to him for someone who was supposedly just a friend from work. Tall boots, clean coat, a certain polished confidence that people wear when they know they are being chosen in real time. She didn't look embarrassed. She didn't look confused. She looked like she had been waiting. I didn't argue. I didn't ask questions. I didn't remind him of the nights I had worked late, or the plans I kept postponing, or the money I stretched so we could still pretend our life was stable while I was trying to build something better under the surface. I just nodded. I wish you well, I said. His eyebrows twitched for half a second. He had expected resistance. Tears, maybe. Anger. Something dramatic he could later point to as proof that leaving me had been necessary. Instead, he laughed softly under his breath. See, that's the problem, he said. You're too passive. Then he turned, and she slipped her arm through his like they had practiced it, and the two of them walked away without looking back. I stood there longer than I should have. Long enough to feel stupid. Long enough to feel the heat rise up my neck from the humiliation of being left in public like I was a conversation he had finally outgrown. Long enough to notice how quiet it suddenly was once he was gone. That night, I didn't drink. I didn't call anyone. I didn't send a single desperate text asking for explanations I already understood. I went home, opened my laptop, and updated my resume for the first time in months. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself I was just doing something useful, because otherwise I would sit there replaying the scene outside that bar until it carved itself into my bones. But part of me kept circling the same two questions. Why had he looked so confident walking away? And why did it feel like he thought I would still be right where he left me? The first few days after the breakup were quiet in a way that felt unreal. No good morning texts, no little digs disguised as jokes, no reminders that I should be doing more, earning more, becoming more, faster. Just silence, the kind that forces you to sit with yourself whether you are ready to or not. I replayed his words more than I want to admit. Someone who has nothing. He said it like a diagnosis, not an insult. Like he was simply stating a fact everyone else had already accepted, and I was the only one still trying to romanticize around it. Caleb had always been good at that, framing cruelty as honesty. Every time I pushed back, he would sigh and say I was being insecure, that he was just ambitious, that I should be grateful he was motivating me. Motivating. Right. I worked in logistics. Not glamorous. Not the kind of job that photographs well online, but it was stable. It paid my bills. It was helping me slowly dig out of debt, while I tried to position myself for something better. Caleb hated that I wasn't flashy about it. He hated that progress with me looked boring. He loved talking about levels and upgrades, loved pointing out couples online who traveled every month and wore matching designer outfits, loved reminding me that people our age were already living. Looking back, I should have known exactly how this would end. Instead of spiraling, I did the only thing that made sense. I stopped talking and started moving. I picked up extra shifts. I finished the certification I had been dragging my feet on because Caleb always said it was a waste of weekends. I cut my spending down to almost nothing. No bars, no takeout, no distractions. Just work, gym, sleep, repeat. I didn't post about any of it. I didn't announce some dramatic glow-up. I didn't even block him. I didn't need to. 3 days after the breakup, I heard through someone else that he had already posted pictures with her. Rooftop bar, champagne glasses, some caption about knowing your worth. That stung, but not the way he probably wanted it to. Because for the first time in a long time, I was not trying to prove anything to him. I was trying to make sure I never felt that small again. What I didn't know then was that even while pretending he had already moved on, Caleb was watching everything. By the end of the week, I was running more on routine than emotion. Wake up early, work, gym, study, repeat. It wasn't cinematic. No dramatic speeches in the mirror. No revenge body montage in my head. Just quiet discipline. The kind that doesn't look impressive from the outside, but starts changing something deep inside you. That was when Caleb's name flashed across my phone. Not a text. A call. I stared at the screen until it stopped ringing. He didn't try again that night. But the next morning I woke up to 3 missed calls and a voicemail. I didn't listen to it right away. I already knew it wouldn't be an apology. Caleb never apologized. He reframed. Later that afternoon, curiosity got the better of me. I played the message with my phone on speaker while I folded laundry. His voice came through shaky, but controlled. "Hey, it's me. I just wanted to check in. I heard you've been busy." Busy. Like he was monitoring a project he had already canceled. I didn't call back. That evening, a mutual friend texted me. "Caleb keeps asking what you're up to. He says he's worried about you." Worried. From the man who told me I had nothing and walked off with another woman like he was trading up a phone plan. I found out not long after why he was suddenly so interested. The woman he left with was not the upgrade he thought she was. Loud online, thin in real life, all image, no follow-through, the kind of person who posted captions about luxury and still borrowed money. Funny how fast potential starts sounding unattractive when it belongs to someone else. Still, I stayed quiet. No vague posts. No explanations. No reaching. That silence must have gotten under his skin, because 3 nights later, my phone rang again. This time I answered. "Shauna," he said too quickly, like he was afraid I might hang up. I didn't expect you to disappear like this." "Disappear?" I almost laughed. "I didn't disappear," I said. "You walked away." He went quiet. And in that pause, I realized something important. He didn't expect me to build anything. He expected me to stay exactly where he left me. After that call, I expected things to settle down. They didn't. Caleb started showing up everywhere again. Not physically at first, but digitally, the way people do when they want access without accountability. He watched every story I posted, liked old photos at strange hours, reacted to things that had nothing to do with him. It was subtle enough to deny, obvious enough to notice. Then the messages started. Not directly to me at first, to friends, to mutuals, to the kind of people he knew would circle back with just enough concern to make his interest seem flattering instead of invasive. "He says he's worried you're spiraling. He thinks you're pretending everything's fine. He hopes you're not doing all this out of spite." Out of spite. Meanwhile, I was getting promoted at work. Not some dramatic leap. Not the kind of title change people announce with a champagne photo and a caption about manifesting abundance. Just enough to matter. Enough to change my paycheck in a real way. Enough to confirm that the extra shifts, the certification, the quiet discipline were actually turning into something solid. I didn't tell anyone, especially not him. Then one night, my phone rang and I answered without thinking. He was crying. Real crying. Not the controlled, polished kind he used in arguments when he wanted to sound injured. This was different. Messier, less filtered. "I messed up," he said immediately. "I shouldn't have said those things. I was angry. I was scared." I stayed silent. "You didn't even try to stop me," he continued, voice shaking. "You just let me go." There it was. Not regret for humiliating me. Not regret for choosing someone else in front of me. Regret that I didn't chase. "You walked away with another woman," I said calmly. "What exactly was I supposed to do?" He sniffed hard on the other end. "Fight. Show me you cared." I closed my eyes for a second. For 2 years, I had shown him I cared in ways that didn't photograph well. In patience, in planning, in sacrifice, in quiet support when he felt uncertain about himself, in listening, in staying. But none of that counted to him because none of it looked dramatic enough to flatter his ego. "I did care," I said. "I just don't anymore." The line went still after that. Then he said the thing that changed everything. "I didn't think you'd actually become something without me." And suddenly, the crying made sense. He wasn't calling because he missed me. He was calling because he was afraid he had misjudged me. For the first time, he wasn't looking down at me anymore. He was looking back. After that call, I thought he would back off from embarrassment alone. Instead, he doubled down. The next morning, he texted me like the night before had never happened. "Good morning. Hope you slept okay." No apology. No mention of tears. No acknowledgement of what he had admitted. Just a neat little reset, like he could move the conversation back to safer ground where he still had access. I didn't reply. By that afternoon, his tone changed. "You don't have to ignore me. I'm just trying to be mature about this." Mature. From the man who broke up with me in public and walked off with another woman. That evening, I ran into him by accident. Same grocery store, same aisle, different version of me. He looked surprised, but not upset. More like hopeful. Like maybe random timing would do what his messages couldn't. "Hey," he said, brushing his hand over the back of his neck. "You look different." "Yeah," I said. "So do you." He laughed awkwardly. "I didn't expect to see you here." "You live 2 blocks away," I said. He frowned, then smiled again, because charm had always been his first reflex when reality got inconvenient. "I've been meaning to talk to you in person. I already knew where this was going. He stepped a little closer. I didn't mean what I said that night, about you having nothing. I was emotional. You meant it, I said. You just didn't expect consequences. His smile faded. I just think it's crazy how fast you've changed, he said, a little sharper now. It feels like you're trying to prove something. I met his eyes. I am, to myself. That answer landed harder than I expected. He crossed his arms. So what, now you're too good to talk to me? No, I said evenly. I'm just not available anymore. Available. That word hit him in a place he wasn't prepared for. I saw it happen. His mouth opened, then shut again. For the first time, he didn't have a move ready. As I walked away, I felt it clearly. He wasn't trying to come back because he loved me. He was trying to pull me back down to where he felt comfortable. And I wasn't going. That night, he called again. I didn't answer. He called a second time, then a third. By the fourth call, I knew something had changed on his side. Caleb didn't chase like this. He was used to being the one people pursued, the one people explained themselves to, adjusted around, waited for. I let it ring out. The next day, he showed up where he knew I'd be, outside my gym, sitting in his car with the windows down and sunglasses on like he had planned the whole thing carefully enough to pretend it was casual. Wow, he said as I walked past. You're really going to ignore me in person now? I stopped, mostly out of curiosity. What do you want, Caleb? He stepped out of the car with a dramatic sigh. I just don't recognize you anymore. There it was again. Not concern. Discomfort. I'm focused, I said. He laughed, short and sharp. Focused on what? Proving me wrong? No, I replied, on not ending up back where I was. His face tightened. You act like I ruined your life. You didn't, I said. You clarified it. That irritated him fast. He stepped closer. You know that woman I left with? At least she lives. She doesn't hide behind plans and spreadsheets. I looked at him for a second. Is that why you're here? I asked. Because it didn't work out? His silence answered for him. You think you're better than me now? He snapped. No, I said calmly. I think I'm better for myself. He scoffed. You'll burn out. You always do. That landed, but not in the way he wanted. I burned out trying to keep up with you, I said. This feels sustainable. He just stared at me after that, jaw clenched, like he was trying to decide whether to insult me or break down right there in the parking lot. Then his voice dropped. I didn't think you'd actually level up without me. I stepped back. That's not my problem anymore. As I walked into the gym, I felt something settle in me. Quiet, permanent. He didn't miss me. He missed the versions of me that stayed small so he could feel tall. And he was finally realizing that version wasn't coming back. After the gym incident, Caleb stopped pretending any of this was about checking in. He went straight to rewriting the story. A mutual friend sent me screenshots I never asked for. Caleb had been venting loudly to anyone willing to listen. According to him, I had changed overnight. I had let bitterness consume me. I was obsessed with proving him wrong. Obsessed. Meanwhile, I was working, training, studying, and sleeping like my future depended on it. Because it did. If that counted as obsession, it was the healthiest one I had ever had. Then he escalated. One evening, he showed up at my apartment. No warning, no text, just knocking on my door like he still had some claim to my time. When I opened it, he looked me up and down so slowly it felt less like a greeting and more like an inspection. So this is it, he said. This is the big transformation. I didn't invite him in. What do you want, Caleb? He gave a short scoff. I just wanted to see if you were actually doing better or just pretending. I leaned against the doorframe and let that sit between us for a second. There was something almost pathetic about the way he said it, like he needed me to still be broken, so the story he told himself about leaving would hold. You look fine, he said. There was disappointment in his voice. That stung more than if he had insulted me. You know, he continued, folding his arms, I never said you couldn't succeed. I just didn't want to waste my best years waiting. I nodded slowly. And I didn't want to spend mine being reminded I wasn't enough. That hit him harder than I expected. His mouth opened, then closed. I could almost see him switching tactics in real time, abandoning superiority the second it stopped working. So now what? He snapped. You really think you're above me because I left? No, I said evenly. I think I'm beyond this. His eyes flashed. Careful. You're not as special as you think. I smiled, not smugly, not cruelly, just calmly. Neither are you. That did it. He laughed bitterly, the sound sharp and ugly. You'll regret this. People like you always do. You build something and forget who was there before. I shook my head. You weren't there for me. You were there until you thought you could do better. Silence stretched between us after that. Real silence, the kind that leaves nowhere to hide. Then, quietly, almost to himself, he said, "I didn't think you'd actually win." I looked at him one last time. "I wasn't competing," I said. "I was surviving." Then I closed the door. And on the other side of it, he finally understood something he had never considered. He had not walked away from nothing. He had walked away from a woman who was about to become someone he could no longer reach. I thought that would end it. It didn't. 2 nights later, my phone rang at 1:17 in the morning. Caleb. I almost let it go to voicemail. Almost. But something in me knew this call would be different. The moment I picked up, I heard it. Full-on sobbing. No control, no edge, no practiced coolness. Just raw panic. "I can't do this," he said, crying so hard some of the words blurred together. "Everything's falling apart." I stayed quiet. "The woman I left with," he continued, voice breaking, "she's gone. Just gone. She said I was too intense, too demanding. Can you believe that?" Yes, I could. "I don't know what I'm doing anymore," he said. "I feel stupid. I feel like I threw everything away." Everything. Not me, not us. Everything. I could hear the difference now more clearly than ever. He was not mourning the relationship because of what I meant to him. He was mourning the collapse of the version of himself that always expected a soft place to land. Then he said, softer now, "You were the only one who ever believed in me. You always stayed. You always had a plan." There it was. Not love. Security. I finally spoke. "You didn't want a plan," I said. "You wanted a shortcut." He sucked in a breath like I had slapped him. "That's not fair." "You left because I didn't look impressive yet," I said. "Now you're calling because I do." His crying slowed, replaced by shaky breathing. "I made a mistake," he whispered. "Please don't say you don't care." I leaned back against the couch and stared at the ceiling for a long second before answering. "I care," I said honestly. "Just not the way you want." Silence. Then almost childlike, "Can we meet? Just talk. I need to see you." This was the moment he thought would reset everything. The late-night confession, the emotional collapse, the opening where I would step back into my old role, the woman who steadied him, the woman who absorbed the fallout, the woman who stayed. "I don't think that's a good idea," I said. His tone changed immediately. Not angry yet. Fear first. "Why?" "Because if I come save you," I said, "you'll leave again the moment something shinier shows up." He started crying harder. "I wouldn't," he said. "I swear." I closed my eyes. "I believe you believe that," I said. "And that's the problem." That line hung between us. He went quiet after that. Not because he agreed, because he knew it was true. "I hope you figure things out," I added, "but it won't be with me." When the call ended, I sat there for a long time, not shaking, not crying, not triumphant, just aware. A week earlier, he said I had nothing. Now he was calling because he had nothing. And somewhere in the middle of that reversal, he had decided I was still the person he could come back to. He was wrong. And he was finally starting to realize it. After that call, Caleb didn't disappear. He unraveled. At first, it came through other people. Mutual friends reaching out carefully, then less carefully, like they weren't sure whether they were helping him or helping themselves feel less awkward about watching him fall apart in public. Caleb's been crying at parties. He's drinking too much. He keeps talking about you like you were the only stable thing in his life. One friend told me, "He keeps saying he fumbled you." Another said, "I think he really thought you'd still be there." I didn't respond to any of it. Not because I was trying to be cold, because engaging would have pulled me right back into the role he wanted me in. The emotional anchor, the safety net, the woman who absorbed the consequences of his choices so he didn't have to feel them all at once. Meanwhile, my life kept moving. The certification paid off. Officially. I got offered a better position at work. More responsibility, better pay, real momentum, nothing flashy, nothing that looked glamorous in a caption. Just solid, steady progress. The kind Caleb used to mock because it didn't come with bottle service or curated vacations. The irony wasn't lost on me. A few nights later, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. "I saw you got promoted. I always knew you had it in you." I stared at the screen for a second, then typed back. "You didn't know. You just didn't want to wait." He replied instantly. I was young. I was scared. Everyone else was moving faster. That sentence explained more about him than any apology could have. He did not want growth. He wanted comparison. He wanted the visible proof of success without the patience required to stand beside someone while they built it. "Can we meet?" he asked. "I just want to talk. I promise I'm not asking for anything." That promise was the lie. I put my phone down and didn't respond. An hour later, another message came through. "Please, I feel like I'm losing everything." I replied once. "You didn't lose everything. You let go of something before it had time to grow. That doesn't mean it comes back when you panic. The three dots appeared, disappeared, came back, then vanished for good. And for the first time since he walked away with another woman, I understood something clearly enough that it almost felt peaceful. He didn't leave because I had nothing. He left because he could not tolerate standing next to a woman whose success was still in progress, because unfinished growth gave him nothing immediate to admire, nothing flashy to claim, nothing he could point to and say had value now. And that made all the difference. I didn't hear from him for almost 2 weeks after that. No texts, no calls, no updates through friends. For the first time since the breakup, he was actually gone. Then on a random Tuesday evening, my phone rang. His name. I almost let it go to voicemail. Almost. But something told me this would be the last one. I answered. He wasn't crying this time. I just wanted to hear your voice once, he said quietly. No attitude, no edge, no performance, just exhaustion. I stayed silent. I've had a lot of time to think, he continued. About what I said, about how I left, about how I treated you like you were already a failure because you weren't finished yet. That word, finished, hit me harder than I expected. Because that had always been the quiet cruelty under everything with him. He talked about people like products, ready, valuable, worth investing in, or not. And if they were still becoming, if they were still climbing, if they still needed time, he treated that unfinished stage like proof they might never arrive. I thought success was something you either had or didn't, he said. I didn't understand that some people are still building. I exhaled slowly. You didn't want to be there while I was building, I said. That was your choice. I know, he whispered, and I have to live with it. There was a pause after that, long, but not tense. Then he said the one thing I never expected to hear from him. I hope whoever ends up with you understands what they have. I closed my eyes for a second. I hope you figure out what you're actually looking for, I said, not just what looks good next to you. He didn't argue. He didn't defend himself. He didn't try to reopen anything. I'm sorry, he said, for saying you had nothing. I answered honestly. I had less back then. I didn't have nothing. He let out a shaky breath. I see that now. We said goodbye after that. No promises, no flirting, no talk about staying friends, no lingering thread left there in case one of us got lonely enough later. Just an ending that finally sounded like the truth. When the call ended, I didn't feel victorious. I felt free. Because when he said I can't spend my youth on someone who has nothing, what he really meant was, I don't want to invest unless I'm guaranteed a return. He didn't want love that required patience. He wanted proximity to something already complete, something already validated, something that made him feel like he had chosen well without asking him to endure uncertainty. And when I told him I wished him well that night outside the bar, I wasn't being passive. I was accepting something before he had the maturity to admit it himself. He was never going to value what I was building while it still looked ordinary. He was only going to understand it once it became undeniable. By then, it was no longer his. That is the part people get wrong about stories like this. They think the ending is revenge. They think the point is that the person who left comes back once success shows up and realizes what they lost. But that is not the real ending. The real ending is quieter than that. It is waking up one day and realizing their return no longer matters. It is understanding that the nights you spent doubting yourself were never evidence that you were empty. They were just proof you were in the middle of becoming, and some people are too shallow, too impatient, or too insecure to recognize value before it becomes obvious to everyone else. Caleb thought he left a woman with nothing. What he actually left was a woman in progress. And there is a difference between those two things, so large it can change your whole life. I know that now, because I am not special. I am not some dramatic success story with a soundtrack and a perfect final line. I am just a woman who got humiliated in public, went home, opened her laptop, and kept building anyway. And that turned out to be enough.